You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm a warlord, possibly known as Scarr.
I'm vocal socialist Liam.
And I'm SavageMick.
And the taxman may have caught up with us. We may have to pay our dues, but this is an RPG. Surely we can find a more reasonable solution, such as setting the entire world on fire.
I didn't come here to pay taxes. I came here to slay out and have fun. And taxes aren't fun, and I don't want to do it. It's my money, even if it's stupid imaginary money that really only took me a couple hours to earn. But it's mine.
This taxman wants me to pay taxes, but there's only one of them, so I think that he might meet an unfortunate accident in a ditch outside the town.
We only pay taxes to superior forces, and if we've got no healing spells left.
So yes, our premise today is to look at the relationship between the standard player character and social responsibilities. And I feel like the idea that, like, if you're in a functioning kingdom at any point in human history, you would generally be expected to have to throw some money into the communal kitty, presumably into the coffers of some high lord, or major central authority of a similar kind. Now, to be fair, it's hardly only well-armed adventurers who invested in means of avoiding taxes. It's sort of a recurring theme throughout history. As long as there have been taxes, there have been people trying to avoid taxes. But
Avoiding and evading.
yes, but usually this takes the form of, taking out all the furniture out of your house, putting it in the next person's house, when the taxman comes along, and then swapping it all back around as he moves to the house beside you. Or
the classic putting windows on the outside which are opaque and bricked up on the inside, so you can argue when the taxman comes around and is calculating the window tax that it's not actually a window.
Yeah,
It's a decorative feature.
Exactly.
or
so you can see that the ostentatious show of wealth from having tons of windows, but not actually. Well, I guess that this is getting into history of taxation, which is kind of relevant, but not really. But one of the first and most progressive forms of taxation that was introduced was the window tax, whereby the wealthier you are, the more windows you had, therefore the more tax you paid. So people were coming up with clever ways of still appearing to be wealthy, but not having to pay the tax on it.
Yikes. It does. In real life, taxes have led to absurdities and continue to do so in human behavior. Who's got a beard at the moment? Is that taxable right now? I can't remember.
Well, we've plenty of PO boxes around the city of Dublin that have hundreds of companies sheltered in them. We are quite the tax funnel for the world.
Black church
to help with tax avoidance.
Yeah, we've got the... Go on.
No, I was just saying, if ever you want an interesting plot hook for your more down-to-earth RPG, just look up, if you ever want plot hooks for Wolfruff, for example, so just look up medieval tax dodging, and the plot hooks will just start spilling out. Spilling out of the text. It's quite the thing. But, as such as we have all these methods throughout history of setting people of getting people to pay taxes and people finding ways around it, it's not never happens, but it's rarer for this to happen to result in a group of mercenaries killing all the taxmen in the village and maybe setting the town hall on fire. It doesn't not happen, but it's a bit rarer in the history of taxation.
Probably need some brave adventurers to go after those bandits.
I mean,
well, I got some bad news for you.
Well, for me, that this whole thing boils down to like there's three kind of things you need to discuss when you're talking about anything like taxation. When you're dealing with certainly your typical fantasy adventure, and it can apply to other types as well. But like the very nature of the game we run kind of implies a degree of kind of lawlessness and adventuring, and it's like the state can't handle this, therefore we've got these private operators in. So there's nearly like a degree of libertarianism built into it.
Agreed. Yeah.
The second one is that it's kind of down to the nature of taxation as well. Primarily, people look at like labor is primary thing that's taxed, and when you look at doing any kind of taxation of wealth and resources, that's often and historically has not been really done. And then the third point is that hang on, I'm drawing a blank on that one. But we got two things to discuss, and I don't think I'll remember what my third point was.
It's boring and it sucks, and why should I do it when I'm playing a game about stabbing griffins in the neck for fun and profit?
Well, okay, to be fair, maybe we should start with the GM's perspective. The reason a GM would want to introduce taxation to their world would be, realism / verisimilitude. Like what kind of crazy communist utopia are we playing in? This is a medieval fantasy, or this is investigating in the 1920s, or the sci-fi future where Taxatron 5000 is the ruler of the fiscal imperium. That's it's just been such a natural part of human culture for 10,000 years that to have it just be hand waved away seems, well, just inherently unrealistic. And the kind of people who world build their settings are also the people like this as well. I should probably do something about that.
Wait a second.
If your party's on the road, right, and a bunch of dudes pop out from behind the tree line with their crossbows or bows or whatever, and one of them comes up to them and says, "Give us your money," what's the reaction going to be?
Kill them all, track them out to their bandit camp, burn it to the ground, take every red cent.
Okay, so a guy turns up in a bar, right? Is possibly slightly better dressed and has maybe a badge or something, but has a couple of guardsmen or something with him as well, and turns up and says, "Hey, give me all your money because I'm a tax assessor." This is the nature of what we have with gaming. It's like they look at it and go, "Hold on, who's this guy? Who's he to tell us that we have to give him either all of our money or 20%, or we have to be fully assessed for this taxation?"
That is sort of coming to the thing. The first of your points there, Liam, was like often the typical fantasy campaign, particularly, and also a lot of sci-fi campaigns, are done on the borders of civilization, where a person, where often that village that you're protecting from the goblins, that village is possibly there specifically so a chunk of the population could just migrate ahead of the taxation curve and just be so far from the taxman that they never come around. And
that road had to be built, that road has to be patrolled, and the guys on that road have to be paid danger pay because, well, this is rugged country out here. So the guardsmen here get paid twice as much what they do back in the town where things are relatively safe. So there's definite argument that okay, well there is civilization here, there is centralized authority that needs to be built and maintained, because otherwise it's not going to work. The town won't actually get going.
I guess that's a fair point, but a lot of those. But I think possibly one of the things is that this is actually something a aspiring world building GM should think about. Is that road new? Did the king or the king's father build it, or was it built 17,000 years ago by the Dragon Empire of Thulzun, and it's just sort of gone down to a dirt track, but it's just enough to lead you to Tax Haventopia?
Well, I mean, there are different models around the world. Like even in our world now, like there are states in the world that do not have any income tax, and they may have very few or very little in the way of consumption taxes. So it's not that unrealistic that a setting might have that. Okay, well, you went into the mine, you came out with 1,000 gold, and that 1,000 gold is yours. But what they do have, like where those zero income taxes are implemented, it's usually because the state is involved to a large degree in banking and they're making money off of fees off of the banks, or they might have a large amount of mineral wealth, and that mineral wealth is being used to subsidize the economy. But like there's a high degree of instability there, as a lot of the petrostates around the world are finding is like, if in 30 years nobody's using oil, we've no tax base.
Gotta be hard to come by a gold limousine then, isn't it?
Yeah. So I see, like all the petrostates are massively trying to diversify their economy.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this gigantic 30-mile long dungeon in the desert. It's going to have the most advanced dragons. It's going to have traps using all of the best. No, but
but you can have it. You can have that this town doesn't have any taxes. But there's a big mine there. But guess what? That mine is going to be pretty much running the town. Whoever owns that thing, it will be a company town.
Somebody always pays. It's like if we imagine here. Okay, is the question why do taxes not work or make sense, or why do people sort of bounce off the idea in our games? Well, I'd say one of the things about the whole world building aspect of why you're putting taxes in is, yeah, as Liam says, there's lots of different models. Go and look at them through history. I mean, it may not be the most fun you've ever had, but go and have a look at the different ways that states have financed their expenditure through history if you want to find something. And then, and this is crucial, start thinking about how it works when you throw dragons and griffins and talking swords into the mix. Like, if you want to make money off adventures, don't ask them for money that they've gone and earned out of the dungeon. Tax magic swords. You know, it's like they're already paying. How much of a magic sword's cost do you think is materials, development time, research, pacts with the dark powers, and state added tax? Like if it costs you 50 grand to get a magic sword, you're like, man, if it costs you 55 grand, it's pretty much the same as far as you're concerned. 5 of that's getting kicked back to the state, and you're
pay 23% VAT on that.
Yeah, you're none the wiser. So if you want to explain the high cost of magic items in a world where you have a magic shop, I've got problems with that, but that's a different topic. They just say half it's state tax, and they're like, man, the state's just robbing us for these magic swords. You know what? Next magic sword, I'm getting it out of a dungeon. And then, of course, you've got magic sword licensing laws, but that's...
Our inheritance tax is racist, you know. Humans don't live as long as dwarves and elves. Dwarves and elves live a lot longer. They accumulate a lot more wealth. So when they die and pass it on to their kids, they we might have to pay significantly more tax. I mean, that's racist. That is.
Yeah, the state's fine with that. It's like you're going to live. You're going to outlive. You saw the foundation of this and the previous state. You probably outlive this one. If you happen to die inside your 900-year span, we want 55%.
I mean, for me, I think that comes out. I guess where I'm leading to is the second kind of point that I raised of like kind of the nature of taxation. People kind of naturally see that labor is taxed, and that's fine. But like where you could easily use as a barometer for where people would settle on this with gaming, would be to just simply ask them what they think about inheritance taxes, because inheritance taxes are probably one of the number one ways that you can stop concentration of wealth throughout your generations, right? But people look at it and go, well, I have every cent I've earned, I've paid tax on up to now, and now all that wealth that I want to pass on to my kids, you want to tax as well.
Yep, and the state goes, yes. Yep.
Yes, exactly.
We have a lot of wars to fight, and it's very expensive. Thank you.
Well, look, we've different things all over the place. Like recently here, we've had a debate about landlords and the them being taxed at such a high rate. It's like they're not taxed any higher than anybody else. They're just being taxed like income. But then I guess where the unfairness with it is that if you set up a company, that company is going to pay significantly less tax than that. And we have it all throughout. I mean, like people don't like dirt tax, but again, that can be income coming in. People don't like capital gains tax, but capital gains tax is assessed at a lower rate than income tax is. You know, we have massive disparities within our taxation thing. And apologies to our listeners elsewhere in the world. This is a very Irish bent on taxation, but I'm sure you have your own
yeah, absolutely.
unique quirks
Well,
in the
I
taxation
would
system wherever you
I would
are.
imagine our American listeners would probably be talking about how they have city taxes and state taxes and federal taxes, and each of them has a different set of forms they have to fill out every March or whatever.
Is this where we mention our paid placement by TurboTax or Intuit Tax or Inuit Tax or one of those guys?
If we had it.
That's one thing I am glad I am a PAYE worker, and that stuff just worked out on my payslip. Seems inordinately complicated over in the US.
It's pretty streamlined here
Yeah.
for self-employed, but it's still a pain in the ass. Okay,
Yeah.
listen.
If you look at it like a
stopped
windfall tax,
Yeah.
I mean, people kind of object to the whole notion of a windfall tax. In general, people don't like it, and you could look at it as gamers kind of essentially being the same thing. Okay, well, we went into that dungeon, and we risked our lives and stuff, and then we came out with 10,000 gold, and now you want to look at it and go, you want to assess this, and you want to take a third of it away?
Oh no! That would be a third if you'd bothered to approach the local burgermeister for a dungeoneering license, but you didn't. That's all completely. We're taking all of that. I mean, that's poaching. That dungeon is on the laird's land, and you just went in without any permission. We'll have it all, thank you. In fact, there's a fine. Here's the thing though. Why is it in the game? If it's in the game, it's probably either to serve the world builder's sense of verisimilitude, the GM, and everyone hates the GM already. Don't worry. Or is there some way to make it fun? Is it relevant? Like if you're just running a simulation, okay, fine, and then they're going to play by the rules of simulation or become outlaws in some way. But if you introduce taxation or taxation becomes an obstacle in the game, it should be to serve some purpose. It should be for some kind of fun. Let's not lose sight of why we're here. And is there any way to make it fun?
Well, part of the thing is assuming your players don't immediately go to burn down the state, tax evasion could be fun. It could a woof up game based around tax evasion sounds like it'd be a hoot. Just coming up with all kinds of madcap schemes to avoid old Jimmy Jojo the tax inspector this week. That sounds like a right old laugh.
A collection of
but
false mustaches.
It's an investment.
Why? Yeah. Why are we knitting all these fish? That's just the dodge. Don't worry. We'll save money long term.
Yeah, we have all those false compartments in our barge or our wagons for bringing the gold into town so they don't know.
I mean, getting one over on the authorities is a fun thing to do, and role playing is a fun place to do it. So I can totally understand why any mention of a familiar tax, talking animals, we tax the hell out of those, is going to sort of meet with players going, well, how the hell do I get around this? No, this is not a talking animal. This is my rather hairy clawed child. Yes.
Well, I mean, if you are interested in taxation being a cornerstone of your game, then I guess the Enemy Within campaign is for you, because book 3, like one of the big plot elements of it is that the party rock up to the gates and they're presented with a tax bill. Bringing a wizard in, bringing magic items, all this stuff in, and it's just one of the major elements of the story is like, what's going on with this tax?
Right.
All the wizards and dwarves are leaving because they're being taxed.
So there it is. There's a compelling reason to have it in the game. It is motivating people to do something, and it's changing the fabric of the town or the city in a way that your players weren't expecting, and now they're like,
yeah,
what's going on here? This is interesting. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, like what was I say? Maybe some crazy warlord has got some money out of dungeon, told he was going to be taxed for it. Instead, he went 500 miles into the wilderness with his army of indentured servants and has built a castle, and now it's a keep on the borderland. It's far enough away from the city centre to avoid the taxman, but it's also being constantly attacked by goblins and ogres. There's a plot element right there coming out of the reason of tax, and then you can say, oh, you've beaten the ogre lord, you've beaten the shape shifting wizards and things, and you've defeated the druid with all those tigers. But now we face the real threat. The tax man has found us. What do we do now?
Well, there's also the potential there of rather than taking the player's wealth away, you could potentially look at taking away some of the resources as well. Okay, well, you guys come into town, you do owe this amount of tax. Well, guess what? The wizard can cast shape stone, and those city walls they got some holes in them that from wear and tear.
Oh, that's a good idea.
The druid can cast plant growth. Well, that literally will increase the yield of all of the crops in the kingdom by 33%. So that druid is going to have to spend a certain amount of time, or else a certain amount of spell slots over a given period to be casting that to help the agriculture in the kingdom or in the region.
I guess the second half of this question is, how can you show your players the benefits? Like, we don't pay taxes for nothing. We get something.
That actually was my third point, which I realised 5 minutes after ring. Hang on, I've got a third point. What was it?
What a beautiful segue.
One of the reasons why players don't want to pay taxes, they don't see they get anything for it. And that's also true of a lot of people. Why is there so much tax avoidance? Because they don't get anything for it, and it's legal, but there's no moral obligation to pay. I pay plenty.
Governments are free, aren't they? But yes, no, it's absolutely true, and I think that's part of the things. Is like, if you want to create taxation as a system in your game, you need to clearly delineate between the state of play of you as a tax exempt murder hobo traveling between towns, never staying in the same bed twice, desperately looking for every bag of gold you can because you have nowhere else to put your treasure, and being a civilized part of society where you have a house, you pay tax on the house, you give, say, 10% of your treasure gains to the Lord and 10% to the church, but you have a safe place, you're politically connected. Because you still have 80% of your gold, all of a sudden a lot of very desperate nobles want to be your friend.
Taxpayer in good standing. You now have status gold 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just lay out the benefits of becoming part of society. Make them explicit. Possibly even make them mechanical.
Well, that like the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons, that's really what you kind of have to do with the money, because it's no use. As soon as you get your set of full plate, money is useless for everything else. You really can't buy, but by default, you can't buy magic items. And so what do? You just have vast amounts of wealth to spend on, I don't know, real estate, or as Nick said, setting up a music festival.
Buy
or something.
another pub. Buy another pub. And then the other, let's go Galaxy Brain here. What if, having inflicted all of this upon your players, one day they show up at the local lord's hall, and he dangles a tax break as an incentive to go and deal with these goblins? Listen, you sort out these bugbears, and no one will bug you for 15% this year. How's that?
That small area of the city shall become a liberty, or the town shall become a free stat.
That's it.
Or you could do that. You could do it the other way around. Actually, there is another interesting medieval tax. I believe it's called scutage or shield tax, where you could have your medieval column. You've assuming this is the point where you've got your manor and the village that pays you tax. So tax is good for you at the moment. But then, the king decides for, kingly reasons to start a war. I guess we'll have to get our 27 lads, meet up with the army and go fight the forces of the dread Lord Thermonax. Or you could just say, I want to go raid the Tomb of Ineffable Horror this week. So let's just pay the king 5,000 gold to buy mercenaries. and just ignore that plot hook in favour of the one we want.
I guess that's a step up just from the barter system. It's like, okay, well, rather than providing you with 10 cows, I'll give you the money for 10 cows.
Yeah. It just to put this into a different social perspective, and
Yeah.
I guess it also puts onto the thing is like this in earlier games would have been assumed because it was assumed that you wanted to be a landowner / warlord at a certain point of the game, like that this is where you were going, or maybe you're a traveler, you were working up from being three guys in a rusty old boat to like a megacorp trading between the stars, and as you step up in each level of the feudal or corporate ladder, there would be taxes and charges, but also there would be opportunities. There'd be a certain level of things you cannot get access to until you agree, all right, we're on this level of the ladder now. This is the charges we pay, but the opportunities increase exponentially.
It's all a graft.
After all, I mean, maybe as I say, there's a massive tax on magic swords. We really want magic swords, so if we get in good with the magic sword inspection team, we can very least ensure our supply is safe.
I'd start looking for exceptions. No magic halberd tax.
I guess it does seem a little corrupt, but then again, I mean, so's
that's
the world.
Take a look at
if you pay your taxes, you get access to much better services and much better response from the guards or whatever, the city watch or whatever. Which, I mean, let's face it, has happened quite a bit, but it can seem a little corrupt. I guess that's the difference. Might be where, say, it's a different kind of tax, but like a tithe, like a church tithe.
Good idea.
Is something where response might seem a little more in keeping with certainly with a lot of fantasy gaming, because with fantasy gaming, the gods are real and have actual power to influence the world, and that could be that you made an offering to Ranald, the god of thieves, but also the god of luck, and some good luck happens at an opportune time.
Yeah, I would absolutely say. That players might have different statuses in their religion. See previous episodes about like non-clerics having religion. Maybe there's access to a sort of like church friend system where starting off you're just you're a worshipper, then you go to tithe paying worshipper, so you get your re-rolls from Ranalt or whatever, and then maybe you can buy your way into church friend. And God blesses you a little bit more, but also you have a whole bunch of political contacts now, and you just go like that.
Well, I guess what I like about it is that it's quite intangible, and there's a lot more GM discretion with it. For me, I don't like it when any of the tithing or taxing is done. People are doing it where there's a direct transactional relationship. But that comes down to my, as I said in the opening, vocal socialist. But the only system or game that I've seen ever do anything like that, explicitly, was the vow of poverty from the Book of Exalted Deeds in 3.5.
Oh yeah.
And that, okay, you can't own anything, you can't have anything more than a couple of coppers, and you have to give everything away. And you got definitive power as you continue to give stuff away.
Yeah, you would start off, you'd be getting +1 on saving throws versus evil creatures, and then at the end you would have +6 to all your stats. Every time you touch someone, if they're evil, they get poisoned, and your AC is 37. And of course, you did this once you were playing a monk,
would still have
so that
anyway,
it didn't really matter because you're just punching everyone anyway.
Effectively, you were the same as a PC, or possibly stronger than a PC. We don't have to give you your share because you're just going to give it away anyway, or the rogue not feeling like they're cheating the monk by making sure that they don't that bit that they pocketed, because you're just going to give it away anyway. Insurance money.
But as we were talking about, ancient or medieval taxes are well worth a look at for inspiration. Just came across one here called the Dane Geld, which was basically we need to raise these taxes to pay off the Vikings so they'll stop attacking us.
Unless the dragon finds out about
in a
it.
nutshell. Which is like, now, yeah, imagine that's the Drake Guild. It's like, the dragon's coming around, it's dragon time, we better get the gold together. But you know, what if we sent these guys out? They could kill the dragon. We still get a few years collecting the tax. This could all work out in our favour. Yeah.
Or the taxman. Like if you're saying, we can't. This region is tax exempt because the dragon keeps raiding us. That we've worked this out with your father, the previous king. This is a tax exempt region because of the dragon. And of course, the dragon's been dead for 20 years, but they keep they just kind of pop it out its skin every so often to say, "Roar! I am dragon. I am raiding you."
So, like, there's still fun to be had with taxes if you dig in a little bit. I tend to agree with the simulationist idea that it does add something to the world when you hear people talking about it in the tavern, or you get stopped at the city gates and they want to inspect your weapons and levy a fee. Like, it's good world building in certain respects, because it helps to, even if players ultimately set out to avoid these taxes, it makes them think a bit more about the world as a real place where they have to think about these things. And that's good. Like, it's not something I'd focus an entire session or campaign around, but it's certainly nice to have in the background that they're, in the back of their heads, they're going, we got one over on those guys. We're not paying that 7%. I mean, yes, we had to dig our way under a river, but you know, it was worth it. Absolutely.
And like, if the real problem is, well, I don't want to calculate 10% of 3,557 gold pieces, 2,153 silver pieces, and 30 copper pieces that we got off the kobolds. You know, you could still use this kind of mechanics of social integration to avoid this. You could just say, right, you're part of an adventurers guild, and the adventurers guild figures out the taxes for the fees for hiring, and then you sort of, by agreeing the players like non-guild papers get absolutely destroyed in taxes. The tax run comes down. Legions of 5th level sheriffs come and start breaking your legs. It's better to be in the guild. That puts your campaign premise into a social context, but also allows you to just sort of hand wave the actual math of working out. Oh, you pay this, you bribe this guy. You can by putting, essentially by creating a PAYE system or a contract pay system. Instead, you create a context where you're not pinching every penny, but people still understand where you are in the world and are assured that the world is still working and like the money's still flowing.
It's always going to be a bit weird trying to apply anything with modern taxation and concepts of modern taxation onto a medieval world. Like, there's already a good deal that's like apocryphal there, historically, head counts were taxed, and there would have been a large reliance on tolls and fixed things that were very easy to implement, because the bureaucracy there, like, the bureaucracy wasn't there. They didn't have the sophistication for it. And to a large degree, money kind of came into common usage because after a certain point, the barter system, which would have previously been relied upon, where, okay, well, your dwelling is taxed, okay, X amount of bushels per head in there, or X amount of bushels per adult and X per child. Very easy to quantify when a taxman turns and goes, bang, okay, there's 6 people in that house. So, therefore, okay, 2 bushels a head, 12 bushels of grain, please, and equivalent thereof. But, that's hard to quantify. Whereas, we're very used to in our modern world that things are percentages and stuff. And obviously, most people are fairly numerically literate, certainly compared to back then. So if I say to somebody 10% of something, they can very easily say it. Whereas, those kind of calculations beyond people in a medieval time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think we've covered this base fairly well. There's opportunity there. It's well worth thinking about how much you want to get into it. History is resplendent with great ideas for how to use taxes in a way that makes sense in whatever world you're crafting. Don't rely on sort of modern notions of taxation. There's much more fun to be had with taxes for fortifications or taxes for.
And another palace. Don't forget the king needs another palace.
Golden palaces don't pay for themselves.
You need a winter residence.
Okay. So, we've got a Discord. Join our Discord. Absolutely free to join. No taxes required. The only tax will be upon your time, as you spend so much of there engaging with us and other party goers.
If we get too much into the taxation debate and various elements of government and stuff, maybe we'll create a sub-thread inside of it. Liam rants about, socialism. I think part of the problems why taxation can become an issue is if bam, it just comes up mid-campaign, totally unannounced. And if that's the story you want, great. But be careful.
After all, there's only so many times your campaigns could end in genocide and then a anarcho-communist commune being created in the middle of the Goblin Empire before it gets a bit still.
It's going to take.
Money is power, and sometimes your party having too much money is a problem, and taxes could be the answer.
Or I could create a gigantic money golem and use it to crush the kingdom.
Okay.
That sounds like an investment.
The Adam Smith's version of wealth in this world is slightly different. Money is power in a very, very direct way. Right. Okay, that's it. Cutting you off.
Yeah,
this party is over.
Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.